The big winner. I won dribble at Jimmy Fargo's birthday party. All the other guys got to take home goldfish in little plastic bags. I won him because I guessed there were 348 jelly beans in Mr. and Mrs. Fargo's jar. Really? There were 423, she told us later. Still, my guess was the closest. Pg1-10 is the big winner, said Miss Fargo announced. At first, I felt bad that I didn't get a goldfish, too. Then Jimmy handed me a glass bowl. Inside, there was some water and 3 rocks. A tiny green turtle was sleeping on the biggest rock, and all the other guys looked at their goldfish. I knew that they were thinking they wished they could have tiny green turtles, too. I named my turtle Dribble. When I was walking home from Jimmy's party, I live at 25 West 68th Street. It's an old apartment building, but it's not one of the best elevators in New York City. There are mirrors all around. You can see yourself from every angle. There's a soft cushioned bench to sit on if you're too tired to stand. The elevator operator's name is Henry Belvenheimer. He let us call him Henry because Belvenheimer is very hard to say. Our apartment's on the 12th floor, but I don't have to tell Henry. He already knows. He knows everybody in the building. He's that smart. He even knows I'm 9 and in the 4th grade. I showed him Dribble right away, and I won him at a birthday party, I said. Henry smiled. Your mother's going to be surprised. Henry was right. My mother was really surprised. Her mouth opened when I said, just look at what I won at Jimmy Fargo's birthday party. I held up my green turtle. I've already named him. Dribble. Isn't that a great name for a turtle? My mother made a face. I don't like the way he smells, she said. What do you mean? I asked. I put my nose right down close to him. I didn't smell anything but a turtle. So Dribble smells like turtle, I thought. Well, he's supposed to. That's what he is. And I'm not going to take care of him either, my mom added. Of course you're not, I told her. He's my turtle, and I'm the one who's going to take care of him. You're going to change his water and clean out his bowl and feed him all of that? She asked. Yes, I said, and even more. I'm going to see I'm going to see to it that he's happy. This time my mother made a funny noise, like a groan. I went into my bedroom. I put Dribble on top of my dresser, and I tried to pet him and tell him he would be happy living here. But it isn't easy to pet a turtle. They aren't soft and furry, and they don't lick you or anything. Still, I had my very own pet at last. Later, when I sat down at the dinner table, my mother said, I smell turtle. Peter, go and scrub your hands. Some people might think that my mother is my biggest problem. She doesn't like turtles, and she's always telling me to scrub my hands. That doesn't mean she just run them under the water. Scrub means supposed to use soap and rub my hands together. Then I've got to rinse and dry them. Ought to know by now. I've heard it enough. But my mother isn't my biggest problem. Neither is my father. He spends a lot of time watching commercials on TV. That's because he's in the advertising business. These days, his favorite commercial is the one about Juicio. He wrote it himself. And the president of the Juicio company liked it so much he sent my father a whole crate of Juicios for our family to drink. It tastes like a combination of oranges, pineapple, grapefruits, pears, and bananas. And if you want to know the truth, I'm getting pretty sick of drinking it. But Juicio isn't my biggest problem either. My biggest problem is my brother, Farley Drexel Hatcher. He's 2.5 years old. Everybody calls him Fudge. I feel sorry for him if he's going to grow up with a name like Fudge. But I don't say a word. It's none of my business. Fudge is always in my way. He messes up everything he sees. And when he gets mad, he throws himself flat on the floor and screams and kicks, and he bangs his fist. The only time I really like him is when he's sleeping. He sticks 4 fingers in his left hand and makes a slurping noise. When Fudge saw Dribble, he said, Ooh, see? And I said, That's my turtle, get it? Mine. You don't touch him. Fudge says, No touch. Then he laughed like crazy. Mr. and Mrs. Juicio. Chapter 2. One night my father came home from the office all excited. He told us Mr. and Mrs. Yarby were coming to New York. He's the president of Juicio company. He lives in Chicago. I wondered if he'd bring my father another crate of Juicio. If he did, I'd probably be drinking it for the rest of my life. Just thinking about it was enough to make my stomach hurt. My father said he invited Mr. and Mrs. Yarby to stay with us. My mother wanted to know why they couldn't stay in a hotel like most people who came to New York. My father said they couldn't, but he didn't, or they could, but he didn't want them to. He thought that it'd be more comfortable staying with us. My mother said that it was about the silliest thing that she'd ever heard. But she fixed up Fudge's bedroom for our guest. She put fancy sheets and a brand new blanket on the hide-a-bed. That's a sofa that opens up into a bed at night. It's in Fudge's room because that's used to be our den. Before he was born, we watched TV in there, and lots of times Grandma slept over on the hide-a-bed. But we watch TV right in the living room, and Grandma doesn't sleep over very often. My mother moved Fudge's crib into my room. He's going to get a regular bed when he's 3, my mother said. There's a lot of reasons I don't like to sleep in the same room as Fudge. I found out that 2 months ago when my bedroom was being painted, I had to sleep in Fudge's room for 3 nights because the paint smells made me cough. For one thing, he talks in his sleep. And if a person didn't know any better, a person could get scared. Another thing is that slurping noise he makes. It's true that I like to hear it when I'm awake, but when I'm trying to fall asleep, I like things to be very quiet. When I complained about having to sleep with my mother said, "It's just for 2 nights, Peter." "I'll sleep in the living room," I suggested, "on the sofa, or even a chair." "No," my mother said, "you'll sleep in your bedroom, in your own bed." There was no point of arguing. Mom wasn't going to change her mind. She spent the day in the kitchen, and she really cooked up a storm. She used so many pots and pans, Fudge didn't have any left to bang together, and that's one of his favorite pastimes, banging pots and pans together. A person can get an awful headache listening to that racket. Right after lunch, my mother opened the dinner table. We didn't have a separate dining table. When we had company for dinner, we ate in one of the end of the living room. When Mom finished setting the table, she put a silver bowl filled with flowers right in the middle. I said, "Hey, Mom, it looks like you're expecting the president or something." "Very funny, Peter," my mom answered. Sometimes my mother laughs like crazy at my jokes. Other times she pretends not to get them. And then there are the times I know she gets them, but she doesn't seem to like them. This was one of those times. So I decided no more jokes until after dinner. I went to Jimmy Fargo's for the afternoon, and I came home at 4 o'clock. I found my mother standing over the dinner table mumbling. Fudge was on the floor playing with Father's socks. I'm not sure why he likes socks so much, but if you give him a few pairs, he'll play quietly for an hour.